Welcome to Third Fridays, the monthly legal talk show from Lois LLC featuring attorney Christian Seeson. This is the original forum in which real attorneys discuss workers' compensation issues, share their opinions, and engage in colorful conversations. This show showcases diverse perspectives of attorneys handling workers' comp cases, including case law trends, practical litigation strategies, and hot topics. Here's your host, Christian Seeson.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the October 2025 edition of the Third Fridays podcast. I think I say this maybe every month, but it just flies by. Another year's almost in the books, and we're actually preparing for one of our great internal events of the year, Halloween. So if you've ever followed us on social media, you'll know and you'll see how we decorate the office, how we dress up as, maybe our favorite characters in the industry or childhood idols. We have a whole bunch of things going on at the firm too, like a pet costume event. People bring their families in at the end of the day. So we're excited here, and we thought that October would be a good month to also reflect back on how things were when we started as attorneys and litigators in this practice. Like, what are the things that, in a month of like oohs and ahs of Halloween, like what scared us? What was so fearful about starting a new area of law before coming here? Because, let's be honest, I don't think that people go to law school to become a workers' compensation attorney. And my guest today is no different. If you know anything about construction, wrap-up policies, OSIPs, CSIPs, things like that, you know her name. So Tashia, Rasul, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. I'm so honored to be here. It's been a while. I think we picked the perfect topic for this month, and I'm looking forward to sharing some stories with you. Definitely had a bunch of scary stories.
Yeah,
over the last 10 years.
We're no different. We're not immune to it, right? I think people look at you externally and both internally as like a master of the craft. How to apply our internal standards so that every client's goals and needs are met across the board. And it seems so effortless sometimes for someone of your stature, your level, right? To do this. But I know it wasn't always easy, right? And I can speak from experience. It was like not always easy. I don't even want to say it's easy now, but I would certainly say it's like manageable.
Agreed. Right? Yes. Well, thanks for the kind words. I think I'm known for making things look easy. I think part of it's like confidence.
Okay, yes. I mean, you're confident in saying that too, right? Many guests would not say that, so you get extra confident points for that right there.
Yeah, so I'll tell you, I've been doing this workers' comp for, a total of 12 or 13 years now. We've been at Lois Law Firm, you and I both, for 10 years now.
Right.
Even to this day, I'll tell you, I still get butterflies in my stomach.
Oh, yeah.
I have a trial or like a complex hearing. But I always look at it as because I care, right? I care about the ultimate results, other than being like, whatever happens. Right. And then, then I wouldn't have the butterflies. So,
those butterflies make you feel alive almost. It's part of...
they give me the energy for me to go in there. Right. They give me some anger to support my position, so it's good. But let me tell you, when I was a newer attorney, when I started doing this 13 years ago, I was green. I'd been out of law school for only a couple years ago, did not know what workers' comp was, did not dream about doing workers' comp. I had other dreams, as I'm sure you did.
Yeah.
And I had way more butterflies in my stomach at that point, right? I mean, it was, for me, constant nervousness, sleepless nights, worried about the hearing tomorrow, worried about what the client's going to say, worried about which judge is going to yell at me tomorrow, right? And it's a process. You just work through it. You get the experience. You you'll learn from your mistakes. And let me tell you, I learned from all of my mistakes. And, this is how I've become who I am now. I know the law. I know how things work. I'm able to use things to my advantage. And it helps to build my confidence too, right? Let me tell you, 10 years ago, I probably did not have as much confidence as I did today. So, yeah, it was definitely a lot of adversarial situations, and like things that scared me, and I didn't know what to expect. And like Monday morning quarterbacking, or like hindsight's always 20/20, and I felt like that was like every day.
Right, like thinking to yourself, I should have done that, or why didn't I react this way to that argument or that ruling? You're right. I think that is normal, right? But at the time when you're going through it, it's so easy to internalize it and think, oh man, I screwed this up.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So do you have anything that sticks out? Like maybe your first few years of doing it that kind of brings that visual to a head. I don't want to totally scare you on Halloween month, but it is kind of interesting, right? Like if you have that feeling, what comes to mind as to like the events that kind of trigger that fear?
Right.
Hopefully it doesn't actually trigger fear. I just couldn't think of a better word.
Yeah, no. I totally get I totally get what you mean. I mean, it triggered fear like 10 years ago or 30 years ago, right? But I clearly remember my first hearing. And you know what? I think it wasn't even, it was like a know-nothing hearing. Like now I could probably do it in my sleep.
Yeah.
But it was the first one. And at that time we were going to court in person. And I used to go down to the Brooklyn hearing point, and you've been there, so you see the way it is. It's just like a lot of people, a lot of claimants, a lot of attorneys, like a lot of noise. And I remember making an argument that was really in support of like the claimant's position.
Oh wow, wow, interesting.
And the judge looked at me like, "Really? That's what you're asking for?" And I'm like, yes, Judge. And I'm scrambling through my notes to see what exactly. I'm like, what did I say? I couldn't even remember what I said. I was so nervous about it. But I think I was asking for the awards to continue at the like total rate, even though we had finding less. And it was one of those where the adversaries was like a much older, experienced attorney.
Yeah.
And even he was looking at me like, look at this new attorney, doesn't even know what she's doing. And then the judge also looked at me and he was like, let's go off the record for a second. Right. And, he explained to me, he was like, Ms. Rasul, I think you are asking for a reduction based on your IME. I'm like, yes, Judge, I thought that's what I said. I try to clean it. I try to clean it up. And, the judge was actually very nice about it. And he said, well, maybe I misheard. I've been doing this for so long. But okay, let's go back on the record and you'll make your application. But, like in the moment, it was embarrassing. Through the rest of the hearing, I was like so nervous about what else am I going to say wrong. But it turned out being okay at the end of the hearing. But the part of it that really bothered me for a very long time was as we were walking out of the hearing, the adversary, the older experienced attorney, said, look at these newbies want to come in here and think that they know what they're doing. Wow. Right? You're new. Just like say you're new. And I'm like, all right. I don't know what, like, I never gave any impression that I was like a know-all or anything. I was just like trying to do my best. And, that stuck with me for a long time, especially since I had a lot of cases against that attorney.
Oh, interesting.
So I was always nervous, like handling those cases and keep on going to court. But that was my first hearing. And, for like a couple of weeks after that point, I'm like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. It was just not a good feeling.
Yeah.
And now I know I have to go up against this adversary all the time. And I had a lot of doubts. But, like the subsequent cases got better. You go before different judges. It got better. You learn the law. You learn how things work. And that's how I built up my confidence.
That's so interesting because it's probably not something you were going to tell the world, right? When it's happening, like, I don't know if this is right for me, which makes me think that, a lot of our attorneys that started in the year 2025 have probably made a mistake and thought to themselves, like, I'm not cut out for this, right? And I think what we've done really with the way that we train, that we coach, that we teach, we acknowledge that these mistakes happen. Like, nobody is perfect, right?
Yeah.
I think Greg himself admits that he's made mistakes, and I think the accountability, if it starts at the top, and also showing, someone who has overcome them, I'm hoping that gives some type of confidence, right? Like, you remember your first hearing. I remember my first ever thing to do, which was a summation brief to argue that the claimant's asthma was not related to the 1 year period he worked for our carrier's employer, right? It's not your simple, slip and fall. It's like, like figuring out all these coverage and date of disablement arguments. And the way that I was looking at it, I was like, oh, this is kind of open and shut. Like, this is pretty good. Like, I can do this, right? Mm-hmm. And I think we see how a lot of cases you think like that are wrongly decided for the claimant. And I remember feeling like it was my fault that it wasn't as successful, that it wasn't the result that the client was expecting based on their position.
Yeah.
And it took a while for me to realize, we don't win often. And not only that, there are so many unfavorable results to the carrier and the employer that have no standing in law or fact. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, okay, this calling, this vocation that we're partaking in is so legitimate. It's because employers and carriers truly need defense, right? They need legal defense. They can't do this on their own, because even when we put forth our best arguments, like, we're hit over the head, right? So I think that the idea of internalizing the human error is natural, but it's because it happens to everyone. It can certainly give you so much data to build your experience level.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think, so that's something I try telling new attorneys and even paralegals, right?
Right.
When I started doing this 13 years ago, it was all a foreign language.
Yeah.
I mean, looking back, I may or may not still have my notes from many years ago, and the things that I would write, trying to understand.
The acronyms and the abbreviations.
Yes.
It's not English.
It is not English. And then even in the hearings, things happen so fast. I remember probably for the first month, the notes that I took at the hearings, you just write down every single word and letter that comes out of the judge's and adversary's mouth, right? It's really a different language. And so when I talk to new attorneys and paralegals now, I always remind them, it's okay. It's okay to feel this way in the beginning, right? It's okay to feel like it's a completely different language, that I have a lot of learning to do. It's okay to not be confident every once in a while, but just take the time to go through the experience, to do what you know, to do your best, to apply, the standards that we have, to apply to law, and naturally following the process, you're going to be more confident. You're going to get some wins once in a while, even though, wins are not in our favor. And then you'll become a better attorney and paralegal. But it's, I guess, the fear and, the butterflies in the stomach. It's natural for everyone, right?
Right.
And I do think, at least for myself, I feel like sometimes I I probably make it seem easy by not like fully explaining something, right?
Well, that's interesting. What do you mean by that?
So like sometimes someone would ask me a question, I'd give like the quick and easy answer, which is the answer. But there are times when you actually have to like explain like the foundation.
Oh, okay.
You know, like the background.
The person asking the question isn't needs more of that like justification or explanation, and because your answer doesn't give it to them, there's like a disconnect. Is that what
correct?
You mean?
Yes.
Okay.
You know, so like you need like if you know so. I'm blanking on like an example, but if someone's asking a question about like the way something works in the law, you're like, okay, this is the way it works. But then I have to remind myself that they need to understand how ABC works before we get to point D, which is what they're asking, you know? And then so I always take a step back and explain it because I remember when I started this, I needed to know like the foundation, the basics before I can, you know, before I understood construction and OSIPs and like coverage and stuff. And like everyone looks at me like the expert in these topics.
Because you are, but keep going.
Well, thank you. But there was a day when I knew nothing about it.
Right.
There was a day
when you don't wake up and you're born with that kind of stuff.
No, not at all. I can think back to times when I had like coverage issues and I couldn't figure out who the heck we represented.
Sure.
Like which we have this policy, I don't know what it says. Or we're talking about like a covered job site. I'm like, what exactly does this mean? So, I try my best to remind everyone, like I've come from a place of like not knowing everything, and it definitely took time. It took like all these years, right? So, it's definitely a journey, I'd say.
I think the explaining story that you have, or that example, is so prevalent even as you start to get experience, right? Because, let's say you pass being, newbie, as that adversary called you. You have a couple years under your belt and you start to get the hang of it, right? I think you start to feel more confident, and that, maybe you even have a few wins under your belt. That there are attorneys that started for us this year that have had major disallowance and fraud wins already, like faster wins than I got in my career. And I think that the explanation issue that you're talking about hits home for me, because once I started to feel good about what I was doing, maybe I wasn't truly an expert, but I felt like I'd overcome that initial fear of like, you can't just boss me around in court anymore. Yes. You can't just, walk all over me. I'm not a doormat. But what I experienced in that intermediate stage of my career was I would explain things to clients, right? Like perhaps like what happened at a hearing or a deposition or a settlement negotiation. And I probably didn't give them all the detail that they needed to make the best decision, right? You talk about when hearings weren't virtual, right? We were like busing ourselves every day to all these hearing points across the state. And sometimes I felt like it was better to just send these shorter emails, right, that don't have like the history of the case or things like that. And I started to see, like the follow-up questions coming back from clients saying like, well, what do you mean by that? Or I started to use the abbreviations so frequently that like clients were like not understanding the full picture of what I was trying to tell them. And so I think that even that intermediate attorney, right, a couple years in, I still had to, realize I can still learn more. I can still push farther and be a better analyzer, a better explainer of things that are happening in our case by making it clear to everyone, okay, this is the setup. This is what happened. Like, the background developments. This is my conclusion. This is what I want you to do. And this is what I want us to do, so that we're working in concert to achieve this closure.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
And I think that, for that attorney who's, maybe you're a lowest attorney that's been here for 2 years, or maybe you're an attorney at another firm maybe even doing the same thing, and you're coming to Lois or thinking about coming to Lois as like the next step in your career, is there like maybe a piece of advice we can give them about having that mindset to still reach farther, to realize, yes, at maybe 2 or 3 years, you've survived the initial fears, but now like you want to build that into something more substantial. Do you have anything that could make that make sense? Because I've kind of just rambled on for the past 3 minutes.
That's okay. So I know what you're saying. So I really think the key is you have to keep an open mind to learning, right? And I think that's what helped you and me in this situation. Over the course of our career here, I still come to you with questions.
Right. Same thing.
Right. Experience.
It's one of my favorite chats because I was just like, oh, this question must be good.
Right.
Right?
I mean, sometimes it seems like a very basic question, but it doesn't hurt to keep learning and to ask questions. And that's something I like sharing with everyone.
Right.
Hey, you know what? I picked up Greg's book this morning. I was like trying to read up and refresh my memory on something.
Right.
Or I picked up the Weiss-Walter book and I was looking up this topic, trying to find some examples and stuff. Like I share that with new attorneys all the time because I feel like the moment you think you know everything, or you think like your reports are good enough to the clients, or you feel like you're getting a couple wins and you're like getting comfortable, I think we need to snap out of it, right?
That's so true.
Because we need to continue to grow, and that's something I've done over the past 10 years. Every day I'm going to learn something new.
Right.
And even now I feel like I learn like some basic things every once in a while from like talking to you. I'm like, I didn't know that.
Because sometimes like you don't see those things all the time.
Right.
Right? Like like you can have a healthy debate about something that may seem so foundational to someone who just started practicing, right? But if you don't see it in a while, that could just be luck of the draw. Like maybe you haven't had to litigate that particular issue in a year, 2, maybe 10 years, right? And that happens. We don't like pick cases to have all the issues that like we see every single day. And I think that also speaks to, right, this modesty in like who we are, right? As accomplished as you may be, you still feel comfortable saying, yeah, I picked up the material to read it. Yep. Right? Mm-hmm. Because I think that's important for a new practitioner to realize, and even for our clients, right? Our clients that have, 200 claims on their desk, right? There's no harm in showing up for the onboarding webinars that we do every month, right? The practice webinars that we do every month. Like there is something to gain from just being around the conversation that should spark that interest. I think what you're speaking to in terms of once you get comfortable, like, you almost risk losing that mind. And I can say that I've definitely lost that at multiple times. At multiple times, I thought like, I don't need to do anything else. I'm set with this. And it became very humbling because then you basically have to be perfect.
Yes, exactly.
Right? And of course I'm not. I realized that many times throughout my career and that I'm not perfect. And I think that kind of brings us forward. So that intermediate level is a really interesting time. I mean, so you talked about your first hearing, and now you've also talked about, even more recently, you still pick up the material, right? Mm-hmm. Has there ever been maybe a case that it wasn't just like a 10, 15-minute hearing, but a very, very long trial? You put in a lot of time, whether you thought you were going to win or lose. And even though you put your best effort forward, you believe that you could have done better, even in like, the more recent past, right? Mm-hmm. I think like, all of us talk about, maybe sometimes the best cross-examination question we think of is like the day after.
Yes.
Right? How does an attorney rebound from that? Or like what should an attorney do when they have that realization, right? Like, what, if I just ask that one question about the doctor's qualifications and whether or not they've been sued as part of this RICO investigation, I missed that question. Or, something that they're definitely going to think about and be fearful of. Right. Do you have anything like that?
I feel like after every single deposition and every single hearing where I've had to take testimony, I still have that moment. Yeah. I'm like writing the post-hearing report. I'm looking through my notes and I'm like, oh, man, I missed the question.
Right.
Oh, man, I should have followed up with the doctor on this one.
Right.
But so I think that's natural, right? I feel like it's very natural no matter how experienced you are.
Yeah.
Because the hearings, they go so quickly. You get thrown off so many times. Even the depositions, they kind of like pick up a pace and you have to like keep going. So I think my advice for the attorneys who would try to like beat up on themselves after like something like that happened is to really take a step back and go back to like the prep work. You did the prep, you went through all of the main points, you're good, right? A lot of times I've learned like that one or two question that I'm beating myself up about.
Didn't matter.
It didn't matter. Right. It didn't matter.
Yeah. I sorry to cut you off, but I was almost like, I was experiencing that, right? Because in the moment you're just like, wait, if I ask this question, would I have won? Right? Right? Like, would the awards be lower, or would this body part not come in? Yeah. And then you take a step back and you're just like, no, that would not have
mattered. No, I did my prep. I asked the questions I needed to. I knew what I wanted to get out of this step, and I knew what I wanted to get out of the hearing, and I got it. It was the judge that made that crazy decision, or it was something in the hearing that was out of my control that led to the judge ruling against me. So, I think, so one of the things that we focus on here is like the process, right? Like just follow the process. Prepare.
Yeah.
And once you do that, no matter how much like Monday morning quarterbacking you do, once you go back to that, you should be able to feel good about what happened at the deposition and the hearing, right? So, I that would be my advice. Just go back to what you prepped and, take a second look and just take a deep breath and move forward, because chances are it didn't matter.
Right. And, I think from the and this happens whether you start on day one or whether you start you're 10 years in, right? We work in a volume industry, right? So while you're thinking about it, like your inbox is going to start to pile up, right? Like your reserve decisions and board panel decisions and third department decisions, they're starting to come in. Like, there's no like rhyme or reason for when they're issued. It's just there sometimes, and you have to act quickly. I think what really worked was like the one thing at a time, right? Because you're never going to have, all of your cases like lined up in front of you and just extinguish all those fires at once. No. And I think I had to realize like, okay, like, I have like 50 fires to put out. But I can really only give effort, like my best effort, to one of them, like at any one point in time, right? And so when you're telling yourself like, oh, that wouldn't have mattered, it's because you're actively thinking about that one case and not worried about like the next few things that are on your desk. Like you gave your attention to the case that you're putting your attention to. And I think that's a very interesting like part of it. Like it's, if you try to do everything at once, you're going to be like that, jack of all trades, but master of none.
Agreed. Yes. And, so I think that's one of the reasons we also have to, when we're sitting down to address a case, just like put the others aside, like focus on that one, do what you need to do, and then move on. Because then what's going to happen, like you get confused about the facts, you get confused about the outcomes that you wanted. You're like, oh, wait, no, this is what I wanted in this case, not this case. Especially since we have like a lot of like overlapping doctors or IMEs, if we're jumping from case to case and not putting our full like attention into the one particular case, I think we're going to have more moments where we're like, oh, crap, I think I just messed that up. Oh, man, I think I just said something I should not have said. So definitely you have to put out one fire at a time and just move on, right? And the other thing too, like we're talking about being like scared and nervous and stuff. I feel like I don't know a better way to say this, but I feel like it's important to always feel a little bit of nerves.
Yeah.
To always be a little bit scared because
it's healthy.
It's healthy. It shows that we care about what we're doing, our jobs, the clients, even the way we present ourselves in court, right? Mm-hmm. So now, recently someone said to me, well, you're going up against a very experienced attorney. And I'm like, all right, even a reason for me to be even more prepared now.
Right?
Okay. And then I went
Someone came to you and said you have to be worried about someone else's experience, like recently?
No. They didn't say that, but I was trying to like figure out like the adversary and like the issue. Okay. And they like said like that adversary knows, like they're very experienced. So, they're probably, I think we had like a little bit of an issue on our end in the strength of our case.
Okay.
So the point was that adversary might actually call me out on it.
Right.
Or get the judge to rule against me. I'm like, all right, fine. Well, I know the law just as much as that adversary, right? I've been practicing 10 years. He was probably practicing 30 years. I'm going to go in and I'm going to make my argument. And what happened, I went in and I made my argument, and I think the adversary was just like taken aback by the status of the law and like the argument I was making. And I walked out of there, I'm like, that actually feels good,
Yeah, this wasn't so bad. I think that some people think that experience is so far away from them.
Yeah.
But there have probably been times in your career where you had 5 years of experience, you had 1 year of experience, and you were going up against someone who had more. The interesting thing about litigation is that if our client was going to be 100% wrong, they wouldn't pay us to make these arguments.
Correct.
Right? Like, I think that's sometimes a point that is really not considered by the judge, by our adversaries, by the claimant, even by ourselves sometimes. It's like, wait, like if this was really a deck of cards that was stacked against us, right? 100% in favor of the claimant, our client wouldn't be telling us to go do this.
Not at all.
Right?
No.
And at the same time, if we believe that, it would also be our responsibility to be transparent with them and say, I don't see this being successful, right? To be open and honest.
And that happens once in a while, right? Like we've seen situations where we tell a client, listen, well, we can go in and make all the arguments, but it's not going to fly.
Thing is like the judges and the adversaries, when they see us making these aggressive arguments sometimes, they think that we're always doing this, right? They don't actually see the times when we're discussing like settlement with our client because we don't have a winning case, or we actually pay for the surgeries and the awards at the total rate. Like, as if those things don't have that staying power.
They don't because, they just think we're unreasonable. We want to litigate everything, want to fight everything. But, it's the same thing. We've been paying the claimant for a year. Then all of a sudden they got an IME, or the claimant was claiming additional body parts and they got an IME, and then it becomes litigious, right? Sure. And I said to the judge, listen, how is the carrier not doing the right thing here? Because the judge didn't want to set it for debts and like all that stuff. And like, we've been paying the claimant for the last year. We're not taking issue with the fact that there was an accident, the claimant got injured, but now a year later, the claimant's like claiming additional body parts. So we are contesting it. But no, all the judges see is us being litigious, denying everything, arguing against everything. And just think that we're being unreasonable, but we are reasonable people,
right?
Right? I mean, we are reasonable people, and I think one of the challenges we face in that regard, and is like when you go to court and both the judges and the adversaries are yelling at you,
right?
And it does sometimes make you feel like, wait, am I wrong?
Right?
Am I
they
not
seem
taking the
pretty
right
confident that they're right.
Yeah, exactly. So one of the things I would say to attorneys is just make the argument. Who cares?
Right.
What are they going to do? They're going to yell at you? Like, just make the argument. And I've gotten feedback from some of our newer attorneys. Like, they made the argument and they got a decision in their favor.
Right,
I'm like, see?
Yeah.
Don't be afraid. And especially sometimes you're having, like, pre-hearing discussions with the adversaries, and they're, like, a little threatening. Or they're like, oh, you don't have a good position. And I think that really, brings down the confidence of the attorneys going into the hearing. That's definitely happened to me so many times. But I you just have to remind yourself, I prepped the crap out of this case. I know the arguments are going to be. I'm going to make the arguments. Let them laugh at me. I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
And they have laughed at me before. I'm not going to lie.
Well, yeah, it's like this. When people seem so confident, they're trying to get you to agree with them. We sometimes fail to consider, why are they acting this way, right? And I sometimes have to go back to something my dad used to tell me when I was like a boisterous little kid, like, having an argument with him. And he would always say, like, Christian, once you raised your voice, you already lost. And so I started to actually like think about that consistently, to the point where one of our attorneys, they wanted to listen to some audio minutes and get like some like ideas for how to handle a case. They picked one of my cases and they say, like, your hearings, like, they're so just like, you're talking as if you're just like a metronome. Like, you're making an argument. You're not like, you lost. And they were like, they're almost calling you names, like asking for your license, and you didn't like freak out. And I was like, what are they going to do? Like, if they get that rise out of me, that means that they won. They won, right? Yes. And so you're talking about those pre-conference discussions with the adversaries, like, why are you doing this? Da 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 da. It's like, sometimes you have to think of this, like, I think we're winning because they're reacting that way, that they're scared that potentially something might happen against them.
Oh, that's a good way to put it. That's a good point. Right? Yes.
Because if they were so confident, right, they probably wouldn't even pick up the phone when we call them and be like, Christian or Tashia have like this losing argument. Doesn't bother me. I'm just going to go in court and make the winning argument and win. But when it like really ruffles the feathers, it actually makes me think, like, well, let's talk settlement, or maybe do you really want to raise this body part, right? Mm-hmm. Are you really raising the neck here when, my ISO report shows these kind of things that I think sometimes we internalize and think to ourselves that we're in the wrong when it potentially is the other way around.
Yeah, that's no, I would have to agree with you. They it's just like a lot of noise to make it seem like they know what they're talking about, they have a good position, right? And then they actually go into the hearing the same way, just kind of
sure.
Like,
banging their fist on the table,
exactly,
like all that stuff.
Yeah, and so there are some adversaries that I'm friendly with. Sure. I've known them for so many years.
We're not the worst people.
I know, we're nice people. We're they have a job, we have a job.
Sure.
But they've tried to make comments about like our newer attorneys, how they're being so aggressive and making these arguments in court. And I said, well, hey, they're not making the wrong arguments, are they? You've got a client, they've got a client. They're standing up for their client too. And they're like, no, you guys are so unreasonable. I don't know why they would argue certain things. And I would say to them, like, if I recall correctly, they made that argument and the judge agreed with it, right? And they're like, that's like the end of the conversation. It just kind of like fizzes out right there.
Yeah. Well, I'll leave everybody with this, because I had the fortunate experience of working on a case where you had handled a trial or a hearing, right? And it was definitely a hearing, because it was the issue being litigated was something procedural, and I wish I honestly remembered it, but it has stuck with me because when I was listening to the audio minutes, you were so confident in how you reacted to an unfavorable decision that it really told me like our prep like will win the day every single day. Because you made your argument, the claimant made an argument, judge ruled for the claimant, and it was so clearly wrong that you said to the judge, "Okay, judge, we're gonna be here in a year," and I was like, "Oh!" I paused the recording and I like rewinded it back to like just make sure I heard what I thought I heard, and I think. I don't think the judge like was like, okay, well, now I'm going to change the decision because you're going to appeal. But what it really did was it sparked this idea. And like, well, let me like look further back. And then there was correspondence between you and the client where you had actually used your experience to tell the client, like in the past, this judge has been very unreasonable and has ruled against us on this particular issue, but we've won on appeal.
Right.
So you may want to consider, already thinking about appeal if this decision comes back not in our favor, because we have the cases and the statutes to support it, along with decisions that we've actually already done. That idea of setting the stage, right, so that it gives you that confidence, and that's a process that is repeatable. It's not like you need to be Tashia to make that argument.
Correct.
Right? I think that sometimes we think it is the case. Yeah. Especially I did at that point, because when I heard it, I was like, whoa, right?
I remember that case very well.
That becomes a thing, that becomes part of lore. I tell Misha Powell all the time, you know what, Misha, what your go-to is, when things are so convoluted and you want to take control of it, you say, Judge, what are we even doing here?
Yes, she says
right?
that.
And so people have these things that they build into their own repertoire, their own like process, but it's all founded on prep.
Yes, agreed.
That's the one thing that is constant. If you don't have prep, you can't go in there and put together any process.
No.
So it ended up being a very, very long story, but I did want to end on that to really hit the point home that we may face these scary moments in our careers, whether you're a day one attorney or a 10-year attorney, but it's okay. Right?
It's okay.
We're going to get past it, to get over the hump. And maybe one day you might have the confidence to tell a judge, we're going to be here in a year.
And we did come back in a year in that one, right? We did.
Yeah, right? I mean, you must have gotten back that decision being like, ha, 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 ha.
I did. I that was probably like one of my biggest wins, right?
Yeah.
Because it was pretty much a year. It happened one summer, and then the next summer the decision came out and we had a hearing again. Yeah. But thankfully you took that one home.
I think that is just like a very, very, very poignant moment that I think every attorney can like think of, because they probably look at someone like you and say like, well, she only did that because she has 10 years under her belt. No. And I was like, no, if you, that's what I initially thought. But when I went back, it was really like the setting the foundation that really gets you to its end. So like,
yes,
for how scared you may have been, or I might have been in any point in our lives, right? Like we have the way to kind of manage it and make this really a great place to be.
Of course. Yeah. What we do is a niche, but it's, with some discipline, with some hard work, with a lot of common sense.
Right.
I think it's very manageable,
Yeah.
Prep work as an attorney, whether you're doing this or something else, you prep your case, you would have so much confidence going into the hearing. Regardless of the outcome, you'll know that you did well, right? Even if you lose, you can fall back in your prep and be like, I did everything I can do. It's just other circumstances that, didn't work in my favor. And I think that's something all new attorneys should really keep in mind. Just follow the process and prep. Spend the time prepping. Because once you have the prep, no one can take it away from you.
Oh, I don't think we can actually end on anything else but that. Spend time in the prep and they can't take that away from you.
They can't.
Well, for Tashia, Rasul, my name is Christian Cizan. Wishing you a happy Halloween and reminding you to defend from day one.